All right, so should the rest of us turn our cameras off?
Yeah.
We got it, guys.
Okay, so this is IPTS group presentation on radical belonging. So I just want to set a little groundwork here on what we're going to be talking about. So I'll just give a definition of what radical belonging is first. So radical belonging is one's interpretation of how societal eyes see them as an individual. That is through the filter of what is normal or what is right. And we're constantly being judged and nitpicked for the way we look, the way we dress, the way we act, the way we talk, and what we believe in by people who know nothing about us. But radical belonging is embracing your uniqueness and using your differences to stand out as an individual. However, it is not just saying, these are my flaws and I accept them. It's the idea that belonging should not be determined by skewed societal views or values that have led to the alienation of certain groups. Everyone has value, everyone matters, everyone deserves to belong. The problem is not who you are, it's the injustices that have led you to believe you don't deserve to take up space. By acknowledging this, you allow yourself a sense of belonging as a member of a diverse society. Go to the next slide here. Okay, so why is belonging important in healthcare? Being new to a team or insecure in your place in the team can be detrimental to the end goal of the team, which is to provide the best possible care for the patient. One may not be able to contribute to their full potential due to the sense of unbelonging they have internalized. To combat this, teams must acknowledge their personal biases and overcome through collaboration. In addition, they must be open in their acceptance of all and allow those they work with to express themselves and their uniqueness without feeling shame or judgment. Encouraging a culture of radical belonging can not only help unify a team, but also improve the overall quality of patient care.
So now I'm going to talk about some recommendations that our group came up with to support radical belonging at the organizational, the team, and the individual level. At the organizational level, we suggest hosting a volunteer speakers series session that are kind of similar to TED Talks with a luncheon that allow employees at Health Fairview to share with the rest of the staff their background stories, their cultural feelings, and their current feelings about about the pandemic and how it is influencing their own practice and areas in which they hope to see change. These presentations should facilitate discussions amongst team members about their own thoughts and feelings overall related to the pandemic. Another thought that we had was bringing in therapy animals into the lobby and common areas to help brighten the mood for everyone in the hospital. At the team level, we thought about planning and organizing short team retreats inside of the hospital, perhaps a half day. And at the retreats, we could bring in an outside source to lead guided meditations, reflections, and do a light or fun activity that will help relax everyone. This allows team members to reflect on their experiences, their frustrations, and ways that they can educate their family and friends about their experiences related to COVID. And throughout the retreats, we could also encourage them to share their reflections with each other to further facilitate conversation and enhance their feelings of belonging with one another. And finally, at the individual level, we could have the HR department reach out to Cheeriodical organizations so that individual employees can receive gratitude gift baskets that are filled with self-care items. Another idea we had was bringing in licensed therapists outside of the hospital network to provide therapy sessions for employees.
I'm going to be talking about the COVID-19 impact on marginalized communities and how our interventions would help with this. As we mentioned, TED Talks and being able to bring other people in to share their experiences with COVID and how that may be different from others. Will help everybody see how COVID was different for them compared to their colleagues. Being able to belong is really important, obviously, in this, and being able to understand why other people have different viewpoints will be very important to create that whole belonging environment that we're striving for. These TED Talks will also go along with the retreats, being able to have everybody sit with their colleagues and talk about their own individual experiences personally, not just from a TED Talk speaker, will let everybody understand like how the person they work with next to them saw these times differently. Even though COVID was a shared experience, everybody saw it differently, was in fact impacted differently, and obviously lived the last 3 years very different from each other. Therapy, I think, really is the most important part of this. Therapy is very expensive, and if this company / healthcare system would allow therapy to be brought in at a reduced cost or for free, will help all these employees be able to process the trauma that they experienced the last couple of years during healthcare, and also in their own individual lives. Coming from marginalized communities, these individuals are more than likely to experience other circumstances that may not be seen in other communities. And then lastly, the gratitude gift baskets, while gimmicky, are fun, and they will allow everybody to have an opportunity to bring a smile to their face and hopefully just give themselves an opportunity to work on self-care.
So now I'll be talking about the steps that we need to take to reach this goal. So for the first step, we will need to speak with the manager of the hospital and report all of our ideas and see if they are feasible and realistic. And then the next thing that we will do is contact any outside resources that we will need, such as yoga instructors, spiritual leaders, counselors, animal shelters, and other facilitators that will relax everyone's mind and open up the room for conversation. We will also need to contact HR to start organization of the cheerdocals for the employees. The next thing we will do is gather all the supplies to implement our ideas. We'll need to gather things such as adult coloring books that can be placed in health professionals' offices, as well as a schedule of all the important dates of the TED Talks and the in-services or luncheons that will be held to have more positive mental health and radical belonging throughout the hospital. And then the team can also decide on an annual radical belonging day for longevity, and that would allow for everyone to represent their background and wear a name tag on their short shirt or make a mask that's colorful and represents their unique individualists. And they will also have speakers come as well on this day and have optional meditative sessions and group conversations. And then the next thing is there will be a TED Talk sign up in the office. And then we will advertise the special days where yoga instructors come or meditation leaders with posters around the professional offices and break room. So we'll kind of just advertise all the things going on to support this around the hospital and like specifically in the interprofessional team offices. And then the last thing, we'll want feedback from all the workers and employees to see if it's like really impacting their mental health and making a difference after COVID and just in their general day-to-day lives. And then the interprofessional teams will continue to support this by spreading the word throughout the hospital, spreading the word to their families, and encouraging one another to participate and share their stories in the TED Talks. And then also have the leaders of the team be a positive influence and encourage everyone to be themselves, and then be open and approachable about your background and how COVID has impacted your physical and mental well-being. And then communicate feelings daily and share cultural traditions. Become excited about the yearly Radical Belonging Day that is held at the hospital.
So the financial impact for our plan is pretty minimal, in my opinion. Really, our only costs would arise from hosting the lunch-ons, getting therapy dogs to the periodical organizations, or any outsourcing services that we want to add on, like yoga sessions. And we can, in order to finance these things, we could probably ask for grants to fund these ideas, but if we don't get them, I'm sure we can raise the funds through fundraisers.
Measuring success for this initiative is kind of twofold, and it requires the organization to give back to their employees and promote development while measuring the performance as well. One way to measure the success is the calculation of retention statistics. As retention has become a major issue after the pandemic, as the US Bureau of Labor Statistics had shown us in their reports. Our retention can be a surrogate for how other operations run within our organization, as it can ensure that the nurse to patient ratio is low. It ensures that staffing of all the beds in the hospital, or of all of the beds in the hospital, and it can reduce the number of near misses or sentinel events that occur at the organization. This is especially important to ensure nurses don't feel overwhelmed and overworked, like the nurse in our sample case. These numbers can also inform us of the progress in terms of retaining new members in the workforce and also how to reallocate funds, like Sean mentioned, to support and provide resources for those who stay in the hospital, build on the older workers' experiences, and continue to make everyone feel like they're valuable members of the workforce. Patient and visitor surveys can gauge the perception of our performance on the patients that are using our services. It's one thing for us to have good numbers on paper with regards to meeting performance standards, financials, or the yearly and quarterly outcomes, but it's a whole nother thing to be able to achieve these things while ensuring the patients and their families feel satisfied with their services that we're providing. We don't want to be sacrificing the quality of the patient care simply just to achieve a goals number. And if that becomes the case, we'll have to take steps towards ensuring that we aren't cutting corners in providing care. Employee surveys can be informal in the form of paper copies that are encouraged to be filled out and returned anonymously, or they can be formal in the form of quarterly and biannual performance reviews or check-in meetings amongst employees and administrative staff regarding concerns, their feelings of belonging within the organization, and what more could be done to encourage their continued performance and well-being. In the in-person check-ins could be also a time to encourage the open discussion of errors without reprimanding them for, I guess in quotes, saying the wrong thing. It can clear distractions like some of the patients or some of the healthcare members in our sample case present with. It also allow managers to offer suggestions to ensure that sentinel events or errors don't happen again. Incentives for reaching certain milestones or like the year's work or achieving monthly goals such as a certain amount of production or patient surveys, particularly highlighting a certain employee, can be really helpful as well. Employees' enthusiasm for these kinds of incentive systems and having appreciation events such as the luncheons or the therapy sessions that we mentioned before can speak towards the culture that that we're trying to create at our organization. Offering free events to employees can show our appreciation for their efforts in an effort to show that their hard work is being recognized. And this can also be a time to promote bonding amongst the employees, and they can find others that they're more comfortable within the organization. The goal is for employees to feel more welcome by the organization as a whole, as well as the individual members, to promote a sense of belonging, adequately assess the environment that they're in, and allow development of the team as a whole. Events like these could be used, or could be the reason why an employee could step in for another when one is sick, or the reason why stressors at home could be quelled by friends at work. And further, assessing our competitors for the same metrics that we're using, like we've just mentioned here, can give us an idea as to how we stand and what we're doing right compared to others within our organization or within our region.
We also think it's important to measure and keep track of the attendance at each of these events. So the TED Talks, the in-hospital retreats, and the therapy sessions, to make sure that we're not just putting forth the time and effort and resources to put on these events, but that people are actually attending them and making use of them. And then it would also be important to track attendance over time and make sure that people aren't really excited about these events at the beginning and then start dropping off. That would indicate that something might need to be changed, that the events might need to be varied a little bit. So tracking attendance, we think, would be really important in helping us gauge engagement. We also think it might be nice to survey the activity leaders. So the yoga instructors, the therapists who come in, those who supply the therapy dogs, to understand if they think that our participants are engaged and enjoying these activities. They might have a different perspective than the visitors and the patients and the employees who are participating in these events, and might be able to give us tips on how to improve things logistically. Should the meditation sessions be longer or shorter? Should they be at a different time of day when employees are more interested? So that might be a good perspective for us to keep track of. And then we should also understand what percentage of the funding that we obtain for these events is actually being used. We want to ensure that if we are getting grants to fund these different events and the care packages, that the funding is actually being used and not just going to waste. And then how accessible are these resources to the variety of staff within the hospital, specifically related to the timing of them? Are they at a time that conflicts with other mandatory events in the hospital? Are they conflicting with certain OR schedules or meetings that are required for departments? That's something for us to keep track of to make sure that all employees have equal access. And then it's nice to collect all of these surveys and statistics, but we need to make sure that they're actually being reviewed in order to gain an understanding of their functioning and also improve things in the future. So we'll need to dedicate a committee or a group of folks to review these surveys and statistics on a regular basis and then compile them into some sort of report that we can use to improve our intervention in the future.
So depending on our team's response or satisfaction, these ideas can be sustained for as long as they enjoy them. And we can give evaluation reports to see what changes or things they want to see or they liked. And we can share this idea with other healthcare organizations, since it's relatively inexpensive and these ideas aren't too hard to implement.
So that's the kind of proposal that our team came up with. And here we just have a few reflection points of things that kind of worked well for us and other things that we can improve on as individuals, as part of other groups in the future. Some of the things that we did pretty well was kind of having phases of our project and making sure that we're communicating through each phase. The planning phase, after each IPTS session, we spent some time planning and in discussion of each of our different topics. We had an independent work session where we split separate ways and planned our own work and kind of built off of what we had discussed. And then we came together and reviewed it and finalized it before our presentation. Like I mentioned, the communication through each phases of this project was something that we did pretty well with our own group chats. We tried to include all the members of our team. We all had a part in each phase of the project, as well as in the presentation as well. And we think we split that up pretty equally. During the discussion phase especially, we acknowledged each other's ideas very well. We bounced ideas off each other, and we provided criticism for the things that may not be appropriate for this proposal, but could apply to other successful interventions that could take place within this hospital. We communicated well through a group chat, and we had a shared document and shared presentation, or Google Slides, where we did all of the work and discussed all of our work together.
And then some things that we think might be improved for next time. It might be nice to have a timeline for when to have each part of the project done, so that we can all agree upon when to have our personal contributions done by. That might just be nice to help in management of each phase of the project and make things a little bit more streamlined. And then, although Zoom is the most convenient option for everyone, there were, of course, a couple times of confusion with the different breakout rooms and the Zoom links. So even though Zoom is preferred, it might be better practically to have required in-person meetings instead of the Zoom option. And then for us, the group message and the shared document and presentation worked really well for this style of project. But if the style or the requirements of the project are slightly different next time, it might be nice to consider other platforms like Slack or Trello or Teams in order to make the formatting of the presentation a little bit more collaborative and conducive to a different style of project. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you so much for listening.